First, China requested to postpone Taiwan's invitation to participate in APEC. Then, they objected to Taiwan's chosen representative, claiming that their political inclinations were problematic. And as a result, both Lai Ching-te, who is the president of Taiwan, and Chen Chien-jen, former vice president of Taiwan and one of the representatives to be sent to take part in APEC meeting, were barred from attending. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping himself is allowed to participate. Seriously, who are you trying to fool? What is Xi Jinping's political inclination? Is it not Marxism and communism? Is it not about eliminating capitalism and infiltrating the whole world with their hateful agenda? Hi everyone, this is Stan, your favorite Polish Taiwan YouTuber. Hope you're having a great day. Welcome to today's show. Today, let's talk about China blocking Taiwan's access to the APEC forum. The APEC summit hosted by Peru has recently started, but right before this meeting, Taiwan faced joint attack in an attempt to prevent them from participating. And this attack came from Peru and China. First, China requested to postpone Taiwan's invitation to participate in APEC. Then, they objected to Taiwan's chosen representative, claiming that their political inclinations were problematic. And as a result, both Lai Ching-te, who is the president of Taiwan, and Chen Chien-jen, former vice president of Taiwan and one of the representatives to be sent to take part in APEC meeting, were barred from attending. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping himself is allowed to participate. Seriously, who are you trying to fool? What is Xi Jinping's political inclination? Is it not Marxism and communism? Is it not about eliminating capitalism and infiltrating the whole world with their hateful agenda? Why is Peru so submissive to China? It turns out that Peru is a participant in China's Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. Nowadays, whenever we hear about a country involved in the BRI, it's hard not to sense trouble ahead. China holds control over the construction of Peru's key northern port, Chancay. However, over the years, we've learned that wherever Chinese BRI investments appear, the local population often ends up worse off than before. Let me emphasize this again. The Chinese Communist Party operates with predictable patterns. Most Chinese-backed companies involved in these projects predominantly hire Chinese technical staff and management. In some cases, they even import low-wage Chinese workers for manual labor, rather than prioritizing local hires. If cheaper labor is available from neighboring countries, China will bring in those workers, and therefore further driving down local wages. Moreover, Chinese companies consistently find ways to bribe local officials and decision makers in the governments of the countries where they invest. And these officials in turn crack down on protesting citizens through all the imaginable means, especially in poorer or unstable regions where weak rule of law makes such suppression easier. Chinese-funded companies extract local natural resources, leaving behind irreversible environmental damage. A handful of local officials and elites benefit financially, but the promised infrastructure improvements and corporate social contributions are either poorly executed or never delivered. Local living standards plummet, environmental pollution worsens public health, and social inequality deepens. The growing wealth gap pushes countries into debt traps, leaving them economically and politically vulnerable. According to the Asia Society Policy Institute, or ASPI's report titled Weaponizing the Belt and Road Initiative, published in September 2020, Sri Lanka's Hambantota port had to be leased to China for 99 years due to its inability to generate profits and repay the massive loans from China. With low traffic and limited commercial viability, the port is widely regarded as being more suited for military purposes. Its strategic location, however, is highly significant for controlling the Indian Ocean. In Africa, there is the similar situation with the Darley port in Djibouti. On the 1st of August 2017, under the guise of logistical support, the Chinese Communist Party officially launched its base in Djibouti, located in East Africa. This became the first overseas military base for the People's Liberation Army. While this port is currently China's only officially confirmed naval base, primarily supporting naval operations in the Indian Ocean, it was initially packaged as a commercial port. Another example is Myanmar's Kyaukphyu port, where China's CITIC group holds a 70% stake under a 50-year lease agreement. The port provides direct access to the Indian Ocean. If the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor (CMEC), stretching approximately 1,700 kilometers to connect Kyaukphyu port with Kunming in China's Yunnan province, is completed, it will create a direct pathway for China to the Indian Ocean. This allows Chinese shipping to strategically bypass the congested Malacca Strait. Beyond commercial benefits, this also provides a significant military advantage for the Chinese Navy. Construction negotiations previously stalled due to the pandemic were resumed this January when Myanmar's military junta and China accelerated talks on advancing the project. Have any of these countries seen progress or prosperity for their people after joining the Belt and Road Initiative? The answer is no. This is the familiar China one-stop shop model, well known to the Taiwanese friends. China only completes a few projects that align with the CCP's regime's strategic needs, while promised developments aimed at improving local employment and living standards often result in unfinished projects. Local protests are futile because officials have been bought off. Ultimately, China's investments only exacerbate resource inequities and widen the wealth gap in these societies, failing to deliver real job opportunities. Meanwhile, permanent environmental damage, stagnating local economies, and increasingly corrupt governments are left in their wake. The CCP's control over specific infrastructure in these countries likely has purposes far beyond business. Take Peru's Chancay Port, for example. The US Southern Command General Laura Richardson had stated that it could be used as a dual-purpose facility, both civilian and military, as it is a deep-water port. Xi Jinping's visit to Peru for the APEC summit notably included attending the Peruvian government's opening ceremony for the Chancay Port. The event was heavily promoted as a part of the great trade route from Chancay to Shanghai, showcasing China's familiar propaganda strategies. However, local perspectives tell a different story. Ivan Araola, general manager of Grupo Minero Santa Luciana, a Peruvian mining company, expressed frustration over China's corruption in the region and described the functionality of Chancay Port as being greatly exaggerated. He said that you can divide Peru and its ports into northern, central and southern regions. Chancay Port, located in the north, is not ideal for the export of minerals, which are primarily shipped from southern mining hubs. Transporting goods from the south to Chancay would only increase costs, especially since there is no railway connection with the port. Additionally, local grievances extend beyond the port. For example, since its operations began in 2016, the Las Bambas mine, operated by China's state-owned China Minmetals Corporation, has faced accusations from local residents of failing to fulfill promises to invest in the community's economy, create jobs, and provide development funding. These unfulfilled commitments add to the growing discontent with China's influence in the region. In 2013, China's state-owned aluminum corporation of China Limited, Chinalco, forced an entire Peruvian town to relocate for the Chinese company to extract copper. The resettlement of Morococha, a town in central Peru, was initially touted by China's propaganda machine as a model for overseas investment in Latin America. However, a decade later, Peruvian investigative journalist Jocelyn Yawa exposed the harsh realities of Chinalco policies to global voices. Whether relocated or not, the increase in poverty is notorious. Of the town's residents, 96% were forcibly moved to flood-prone wetlands, which also face the danger of soil liquefaction due to the frequent earthquakes. The new settlement is further isolated, as it lacks access to the central highway. The 20 families who refused to be relocated faced something even worse. According to reports, they endured daily harassment from Chinalco, with settlers' homes being demolished brick by brick until nothing remained. These families now live without electricity or clean water, with living conditions described as akin to the caveman era. Their main transport routes were blocked, cutting off access to basic needs such as jobs, food, or healthcare. Further investigations reveal how the Peruvian government and Chinese companies have used threats and intimidation to suppress local protests. For instance, on May 3, 2024, it was reported that Peru's private investment promotion agency, Pro-Inversion, awarded the rights to design, finance, construct, operate, and maintain a new terminal at San Juan de Marcona port in the Ica region to China Harbor Engineering Company, Peru. The process raised concerns from Marcona Mayor Joel Rosales, who criticized what he perceived as favoritism towards the Chinese company, claiming the port of Marcona was undervalued by the Chinese. Moreover, according to Peru's El Comercio, prosecutors are currently investigating the so-called Dragon Club, a network of officials accused of taking bribes from Chinese companies. Allegedly, these companies forced the contract legislation to be amended to exclude local construction firms that employ Peruvian workers from competing for major projects. This collusion has further fueled fueled corruption and undermined local labor opportunities. China's infiltration into Peru is increasingly concerning. In addition to hosting this year's APEC summit, Peru is also pushing to nominate China as the host of the 2026 APEC meeting. While this proposal has yet to be discussed and approved by the other members, it is a development that demands close attention. APEC is one of the few international forums where Taiwan participates as an official member. However, Beijing continues to leverage its influence to marginalize Taiwan's presence on the global stage. Although Taiwan is an official APEC member, China's pressure has prevented Taiwan's presidents from attending APEC meetings in person. This year, China even delayed Taiwan's invitation to APEC by claiming that Chen Chien-jen's political stance made Beijing uncomfortable. Moreover, Taiwan must also be vigilant about Beijing's efforts to use Peru as a means of blocking Taiwan's bid to join the CPTPP, which is a comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, as Peru is already a member of that bloc. Meanwhile, the United States is closely monitoring China's expanded influence in South America, often referred to as US's backyard. Numerous think tanks have released analyses over the years highlighting the risks posed by Beijing's growing footprint in the region. These reports advocate for the US to adopt more effective policies and economic countermeasures to curb China's military and strategic encroachments on democratic nations. Key strategies include cutting off China's access to financial resources used to fund acquisitions and increasing US influence in these countries by fostering stronger economic and diplomatic ties. Peruvian businessman Ivan Areola revealed that Peruvian entrepreneurs are in talks with the United States to jointly build a new port in the southern city of Arequipa, which will be 3 times larger than the Chancay Port. He also encouraged Taiwan, stating, "Taiwan must get more involved in Peru. We should enhance our economic and trade partnership. Taiwan can do more business here. For example, Peru excels in agriculture, but the electronics industry is underdeveloped. This is where our opportunities lie. Peru and Taiwan share a good friendship, and I hope this helps to increase bilateral trade, starting with imports and exports to and from Taiwan." He further expressed, "When it comes to doing business, I would rather deal with the sincere Taiwanese. The Chinese always think about how to exploit you and negotiate for cheaper deals. I know you speak the same language, wear the same clothes, but both Peru and Taiwan are democratic countries that share the same values." Thank you for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please press like, subscribe and share. This is Stan. I see you in the next one.